Okay, I'm Bill, and this is my Italian stuffed peppers. The reason I call them Italian is because I use mozzarella cheese and garlic, oregano, and basil. So I have some rice over here, and like I said, I have my vegetables, my cheeses, my herbs. They can be dry, of course, my spices, garlic, and this is some chopped up spinach. And some olive oil, of course. So first thing I do after I cook the rice is heat up a pan. I almost always use cast iron just because I like it. It's a little bit heavy, but it cooks better and more evenly. So we put that on there at about medium to high heat. And then we start our vegetables. So all the vegetables are cooked about the same size, but the carrots take longer to cook, so I'll cook those. And I also throw in the celery too. I'm actually going to throw in the onions too. So the only thing I'm going to reserve are the rest of the bell pepper from the top here and the mushrooms, which don't take very long at all to cook. So I usually mix that, throw that around once, one good time. That's it. The next thing I'll be doing is adding the next set of vegetables and a little bit of garlic to that. But that's going to take a little bit, so I'm going to pause and come back. So I started sweating this first set of vegetables. Started setting this first set of vegetables like I showed you, and it's cooking pretty good, but those carrots aren't going to cook too well. The onions are going to cook faster. So what I'm going to do is add a tiny little bit of water, just like that. You're going to see that steam up like that. And that's exactly what I want. I want to steam those carrots and vegetables a little bit first. Put them all the same size right there. I'm letting that steam go through them, and that's going to soften the carrots. So let that go, and I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay, I'm sweating down these vegetables. Remember, I added a little bit of water to it to get those carrots, and it turns out the celery's taking more time too. Which reminds me to say that you saw the vegetables that I had out there. You can use any vegetables you want. Pretty much for me, my mom used to make it, and the premise is you got your peppers, your rice, protein, and vegetables. A lot of people just use rice and meat, but I'm trying to eat more on the vegetarian side. So this is mine. Lots of good vegetables. I use the mushrooms to not replace the meat, but give it a little bit of that umami flavor. But you can just as well use, I would use the sausage, but you can use hamburger too. And then I would cook the sausage off in the pan first. That way you get that caramelization on the bottom of it, that goodness. And then I'd add the vegetables on top of that and soak in all that. The other thing you can do is when these, right where these are at right now, which the first set of vegetables are in, I'll show you that. So that's that right there. They're sweating down nicely. So the next thing I normally do is add the next set of vegetables, which are the peppers, the leftover peppers from the top, which adds some sweetness. The green's a little less sweet. And then all these mushrooms. And this is way more filling than I need. But I have a lot of rice, and I just like to eat the rice and the vegetables all together anyway. So I'm going to mix that in like that. And then I'm going to add this spinach at the last minute, but I'm also going to add a little bit of garlic right here. This would be on the pan, a little bit hotter than that. So I can add a good bit of that. That's at least a tablespoon, or about a tablespoon. Like that. And then I'm going to add some salt and some pepper. Like that. And I'm going to dig that in like that. That should be cooking. Now let that garlic simmer in a little bit. And then I like to add a little bit of fresh. This is oregano. This is basil. I add a little bit of fresh now, actually with the spinach. And then add some at the end too. You can just as well use dry for this. In fact, a lot of people prefer to use dry now and then fresh at the end. But I like to put a little bit of fresh in just because it's so much more tasty. Add oil as needed. You don't need a lot of oil, just enough to keep it, from singeing, some of the vegetables. Oh my God, it looks great. Turn it down just a little bit. I want it to keep pushing like that, but I don't want it to burn on the bottom. So that's cooking along nicely. It's going to cook a little bit to the pepper too, but I'm not going to cook them in the peppers that long. Usually I like the peppers to be al dente. So this is a pan that I use just because it fits perfect. It's like a baking pan, stone pan. So I'm going to pop that in there right now. The oven's at 375, and here are my peppers. And sometimes they stand well, sometimes they don't. If they don't, you can just cut. These all stand really well. They're all perfect. Well, this one's a little bit off, so you can level them out by doing that. See that? And because they'll soften up in the oven, and if they soften up too much, that could move. Or they could move or fall over. And then we just take those and put those in with the vegetables. And show you the vegetables again. Here we got that. Now it's time to add spinach. And that seems like a lot of spinach, and it is, but I had a lot to use. It's starting to wilt a little bit, but there's no reason in letting it go, because you'll see that it looks like a lot now, but in a couple seconds it'll be the perfect amount of green. Like that. And then I'm going to let that saute some more. I'm going to get these ready, and then I'm going to fill them up with the mix, and then I'm going to, the pan will be hot. That'll cook it from the bottom, really nice, right up through the bottom, and hopefully brown or sear the edge of the peppers a little bit, and then it'll cook down on the top as well from the outsides, and it'll stay a little bit al dente on the top, and maybe caramelize a little bit on here. So it'll fill it all the way up, and then we'll put Parmesan and mozzarella on top, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of spice, a little salt and pepper at the end, and that'll caramelize under the heat too. So I'll show you this. Tell you what, that's yum. So that's my inside. That's super healthy stuff. And it tastes great too. It's got your basil, oregano, salt, and pepper. You can put a little cayenne in there too if you want to spice it up. And the olive oil with it gives it that kind of Italian-esque flavor profile. So here's the rice that cooked earlier. This is a brown basmati. I like basmati, I just like that flavor. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to add it into there. And this is where you can choose how healthy you want it. If you're going to be exercising a lot, then you put a lot of the carbs in, which are the rice. If you're not going to be exercising a lot, then you go heavy on the vegetables. So I exercise today, probably not going to exercise tomorrow. I'll be sitting working tomorrow most of the day. So I'm going to go a little lighter on the rice. But this stuff can be eaten later at the portions that you need it anytime. It tastes incredible. So we got that going right now. I'm going to add some rice to this. Like I said, this is a lot. Like that. A little bit of olive oil now. A little bit of fat right now is good. Remember, you need fat. Fat is a good thing. Too much fat is a bad thing, but too much of lots of things are bad. So we add that little bit of fat there. It does two things. One is vegetables are fat soluble. I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist, so look up my stuff if you don't believe me. But I've read that vegetables are fat soluble, so you need a fat in order to gain the nutrients from those vegetables. So having fat's not a bad thing. Having too much fat or too many carbs and not burning them off, that's a bad thing. That means you're eating too much for your lifestyle. Portions are key. Now the rice, I'm going to pull it off of here, because the rice is sticky and it's going to stick to the pan a little bit. And I'm okay with that. I just want it to be the right amount because I don't want it to burn. I just want to get that consistency like a fried rice, like a Japanese fried rice. Chinese, Japanese. Not sure who invented fried rice. As you can see, I'm using my trusty peel here. Clean that off a little bit in between cooking and other things. Allows me to add other stuff to it. So we'll be adding a little bit more of this. So I'm going to chiffonade this basil, like this. And that'll be used at the end. And then I'm going to strip this oregano. I'm going to strip it all, but I'm not going to use the oregano. This is fresh oregano. It's a lot of flavor, probably too much to garnish heavily at the end. Very lightly, very, very, very lightly, and a lot of the basil because the basil is a little bit more medium. So now we're going to add a little salt and pepper to this mix right here. Adding salt and pepper along the way gives it a depth, a better depth. Like that. And then I'm going to fold it over. So I'm going to do it like this. It's going to stick a little bit, and I want that. It's going to give me a little bit of color on that rice. I'll show you that in a second here. I'm going to add a little more olive oil here. Total, I'm using maybe 3 tablespoons of olive oil, so not much at all. So we got this. So I just folded that over, and you could see these browning in here. The rice and the olive oil together browns a little bit without adding too much. Where I think it tastes better, certainly, to add a butter in there or more olive oil, a lot more olive oil, and get that to really sear. But you don't need that much. If you cook it right, you get that brownness for the umami, and the mushrooms do that too, without having to add the extra oil. So I'm going to let that cook a little bit more, and I'm going to get back to you. Okay, we're back. So my vegetables are cooked with the rice and the seasonings, and they're perfect. The oven is on at 375 with the baking pan that the peppers are going to sit in heating up so that it cooks from underneath. Now we're going to stuff the peppers. So we'll stuff them, and then I'll put them in the pan when we're ready. So the way I like to do this, I cut the bottoms off like you saw so they sit much better. So just use a good spoon, that's the size, and fill them up.
So I fill them up halfway. It's quick. Because halfway, I like to add a little cheese. Because this is a lot. One of these will fill up somebody, especially if you're going to have a little bit of bread with it or something like that, especially these bigger ones. So at this time, I'm going to add a little bit of mozzarella inside there, like that. A little bit of Parmesan. Just a little bit of Parmesan for that saltiness. Yeah, it's the cheaper cheese, but you know, you can use as high-end stuff as you want. This is the stuff that I use. The higher-end stuff you use, you know, the better it's going to taste. But don't get me wrong, this is going to taste awesome. I've made it a couple times now, and I absolutely love it, and my daughter loves it too. And like I said, you add sausage or hamburger to that, specifically sausage. You add a good sausage to that, oh, I'm telling you, man. So, that's inside there, nice. Man, I think I'm just going to fill it up. Look how much that took. That was about 2 carrots, half an onion, a couple ounces of mushrooms, and the extra pepper from the outside, a little bit of celery. The celery is new to me. I don't know how that's going to taste. I added that this time because I needed to use it. A little bit of sourness with the garlic, sweetness of the vegetables and the caramelized onions, the richness of the mushrooms, good spices, good salt and pepper. I think it's good exactly where it's at. So I do the same thing on top. So now that it's done, now I'm going to take this and put this back. And I'm going to bring out the hot pan right now. So this is hot. It's good and hot. And then I put a little bit of olive oil on the bottom of that. And then a stack of peppers in here. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's what we wanted to hear. So that's crackling up nice. Set those in there firm. Want them to face the center. So if they're lopsided, we want them to face the center. That way, anything falls out, it goes towards the center. Although I do have a pizza stone, and that's a good reason for a pizza stone. So now, because it's already cooked inside, I can add the cheeses right away. You just got to be careful how fast the cheese is cooked. And really, I don't like my peppers overcooked. I like the combination of like the al dente pepper along with the fully cooked vegetable insides. So I'm going to do that. And you can stop the cheese from cooking just by putting a little bit of tin foil on top. I don't think I'm going to need to do that. So that's like that. And last thing I do is add a little bit of salt and pepper at the top, and that'll mix in with the cheese. I'm going to attach a basil. It could add a tiny little bit of richness. Let's get crazy with it. It's super healthy, so let's add some extra cheese. And this cheese will fall down into that pan, and it'll cook like pizza cheese. And it'll come out, some of it will come out crispy, some of it will come out gooey. Okay, here we go. Ow, show. Okay, I don't have my pizza tin in there, so hopefully it doesn't, the cheese doesn't roll over, or not pizza tin, but pizza pan, or stone. You can also put a, another sheet tray underneath that to keep any of that cheese from coming over. But if you turn those peppers toward the inside, any of the cheese on top should fold into the inside. So here's some of the extras. It's the cheese at the end, browning, along with all this yummy vegetables, is so tasty. But we'll see. Okay, here we go. Super yummy. So as soon as I do that, I put just a little bit of salt on top of that hot cheese, even though it's crusted over. Can you hear that? Oh, awesome. And the basil, oregano mix.
Dad,
What's that?
are the stuffed peppers done?
They are done. Unfortunately, we don't have bread. I did hear you. But as I was just going to say to the camera, don't come in if you don't want, or you can take a peek, is that they're all in one meal. Everything's in there,
True.
right? You got to come this way if you want to be seen. Put that down. Come on, put that down while I do this. You can be here while I open it.
I'm gonna put it away.
Hurry up, Belle! So, she does not want to be on TV. Where are my forks? Silly. Anyway, gotta have a fork. Stick fork, everything's in the dishwasher right now. Isn't that perfect? So, you probably know this, but sweet peppers are sweet, and the green ones are a little more savory. But I got that. Remember I told you about that cheese on the bottom? That's right here, if I can dig that up. Like that. I'm gonna use my fork and super-sized knife. Move this out of the way. Oh yeah, one last thing I like to do. So a little bit of olive oil on top of that crisp right there. And a little bit of those herbs in there. On the table, make it look nice, right? Put a little bit of salt on it already. So you can throw a little pepper on there or whatever. Don't forget, sausage with this is amazing. But this is beautiful right here. Take a drink of wine. So I'm gonna open it up. Solid like that. It's gonna start falling apart, but you can see, look at that. Nice, can you see that? Sweet. See how the cheese is mixed in there with all that beautiful rice, and remember it was a little bit seared, so you got that. That's the umami flavor, that meat-esque, soy-esque flavor. And then the cheese, which is melted, and that's cooked a little bit, and the onions. Well, now you're gonna mess up the shot, Belle. Get down here. Belle, you don't eat if you don't get up here. I'm joking, of course. Come here.
No.
Come taste. So I'm gonna try a little bit of this, and then Belle's gonna try a little.
Don't say my name on camera.
Georgina. You grab the cheese. See, she grabbed the cheese right away. She knows. The best part, isn't it, Belle? When you mix it all together. Ready? Describe it as you eat it. Take the whole thing. Got it? Take a couple seconds. What do you taste? What do you like about it?
All of it. It's good.
I like the cheesiness. I like the saltiness of the Parmesan, the sweetness of the peppers and some of the vegetables. It's not overly sweet at all. You know, it's good salt and pepper ratio. The herbs are good. And like we said, this cheese right here, oh man, that's awesome. It's not missing anything, and it's full on vegetarian. By not missing anything, I don't count sausage because it's just not fair. Awesome. Now it's time for Belle and I to eat. Give it a shot. Super healthy, super tasty.